Good evening. My name is Ben Coleman, and I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to my speech. Now, some of you, of course, may not have ridden Amtrak before. A show of hands if you happen to have. Nobody? Okay. Well, of course, Northwest Arkansas does not have Amtrak service because of the demise of passenger railroading in the 70s. But some argue, of course, also that Amtrak is a money drain. It's something that's useless and something that we shouldn't support collectively as taxpayers through the government. But I disagree. There have been a lot of signs lately pointing to a turnaround and a renaissance of sorts in rail service and people riding it. And of course, I want to also talk about ridership numbers, the lessening of historical receiving funds from the government and operating at a deficit, and also their outstanding debt's been going down too. Now, imagine, of course, if you will, traveling regionally or even long distance with no scanners, no TSA, no checked baggage fees, rude airport staff, and crammed into a tube just to have no leg room and no way to move around in an airplane. Well, I'd like to tell you that Amtrak is making big steps in order to improve themselves by restructuring their lines, expanding their capacity in all the cities that they serve, and also with reinvesting in new rolling stock with which to increase your comfort as you ride across the country. Now, it all starts, of course, with raising the standard of the tracks that they run on. They run several corridors throughout this country, but they're looking at some key ones in order to boost the speed and also the service with which they serve their folks. Here between Chicago and St. Louis, and also here between Chicago and Detroit, Michigan, they're already building 110-mile-an-hour sections with which they can compete against even the automobile on the road. Now, also they have a big corridor in the Northeast where they already run at 150 miles an hour. They're already doing studies with which to improve the track and also to regrade it so that they can go even up to 225 miles an hour and compete against regional air traffic. This will in turn give them better service to the cities that they serve all across the country, big and small, and of course some of the small towns outlying, places like Montana, New Mexico, and even in northwestern Missouri, that they'll be able to see better service from this. And it's big because those places are not within a decent drive to an airport or other sort of terminal with which they can travel now. And in turn, this will increase their revenue so that they don't have to operate at a deficit, and also that they don't have to operate with government assistance. Now, of course, with new lines, they're going to need new equipment with which to run on it. So they're investing in building up new cars, making new cars with Wi-Fi and bigger leg room, bigger windows with which you can see the nation as you pass by it. There are new locomotives as well, so it increases their fuel economy, and decreases their emissions, and also leads to providing better electrical service within the cars as well, because the locomotives provide the electricity that you use for your computer. Now, also the cars themselves, better legroom, they're also having better heat, ventilating, air conditioning, or HVAC in them, better plumbing, and even Wi-Fi in them now. And these new cars and new locomotives are being made here in the United States of America, which is creating manufacturing jobs all across the nation, places like Illinois, Texas, Pennsylvania, New York. Now, once those standards are raised and everybody can start to have more comfort and travel more, and this big number of ridership growth shatters more records, then they'll expand. And of course, states themselves are even taking the initiative to expand their routes. Places in Illinois, they want to go between Chicago and Dubuque, Iowa, which is roughly about here on the map, up in the very tip of the corner on Iowa, and Chicago, even the Quad Cities, which is over here. Nice big area, some good places between them in which they can also gain ridership. And even locally here, Oklahoma is talking about expanding a line between Oklahoma City and Tulsa, with which they'll compete against the tollway, which goes between Oklahoma City and Tulsa currently. It'll help take cars off the road. They want to also increase the frequency of existing trains, long distance ones that go only 3 days a week currently, but now they want to upgrade it so they run daily. That will increase the ridership numbers and also increase the revenue. And even locally, the stations and places like even Normal, Illinois, which is right here, it's a college town, about 50,000, and they're rebuilding their station so that it services school-run buses, electric-powered cars with charging stations, and even for people to rent cars or even rent bicycles. And this in turn will all progress, but it will not progress if we just allow it to simply die, because it is seen as a money pit expense. Now, with continued track upgrades, expansion will see them become profitable. Debt is going down, as seen by this lovely chart right here. It is just about to break down beneath $1 billion and will continue to go down for the future. And the subsidized loss of this keeps going down, and the ridership number will keep going up. We can see continued expansion, and even perhaps someday here in Northwest Arkansas we'll have a line of our own. And again, I thank you for your time this evening, and enjoy the view.